Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, are the Falcons doing their due diligence or will they simply just swipe right?
And with what we saw on the weekend, is that the right team in Miami or in South Beach, or is there another one that we're going to see tonight?
And last but not least, and for the culture, Ja Morant, bruh, I need you to get your life, my man. That's all coming up next right here on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast and wherever you download your podcast. Make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. But T, when you're thinking about all of this quote-unquote speed dating, as Terry Fontenot referred to it as, those are formal interviews that the teams have. Now, teams have 45 of those, so they got a lot of room to play with as far as getting to know each other and trying to figure out who will be a viable candidate to not only select at the 8th overall pick, which is seemingly what we tend to talk about a lot, but for the rest of the draft as well. So in doing their due diligence, the Falcons got a chance to do a formal two top quarterback prospects, C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson, T. And like I mentioned earlier, I think that this is a scenario where a lot of people are starting to feel like the Falcons are showing their cards now because they are talking to these top guys that won't necessarily be probably in the top 2 or 3, but they might be available in between that 4 to 7 range, where, you know, they may have to trade up, or one of those guys might fall in their lap. But after all of this, T, and putting all of these tea leaves together, do you see this as hey, we see a chance to get a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years? Or do you look at it as we're just doing our due diligence and trying to make sure that we cross every T and dot every I?
I think it's a little bit of both, because oftentimes you'll hear as well a player say, well, I never actually spoke to them. I didn't get to interview with them. But It may be something that happened, and you know this better than most. It may be something that a scout saw at Senior Bowl, or it may be something that a scout saw at the East-West Shrine Bowl, or there may have been conversation with another team where they're like, hey, we're partners with that team. We've been talking with that team, and we decided we can go after that guy, and they give a thumbs up. You just never know, right? So I do think in part it's some due diligence there. But also, I think that if you can sneak up just to like 6 or 5, or like you said, even 7, man, that would be like the money shot right there. But if you can sneak up just a couple of spots and may not have to give away the kitchen sink, you definitely want to do that, because this time last week, we were saying how laugh if you want to, but until the draft and until free agency really kicks in, then the Falcons are kind of in the catbird seat in the NFC South. Yeah, until about 47 minutes ago. Derek Carr tweeted out, who that?
Yeah, like, oh, you got an established quarterback in the division now. Okay.
There you go. All of a sudden, Desmond Ridder is no longer the OG in this division. Yes. So when you look at that perspective, when you look at it from that perspective, you then have to do your due diligence. And again, this takes away nothing from Desmond Ridder, but tell me what person in their right mind who could snatch up C.J. Stroud and maybe Anthony Richardson for all he did at the combine, if you're that person who's like, whoa, like he really blew you out of the water for the combine. If they're there, 1-2 spots, and you only have to go up a little bit, you wouldn't go get him? Yeah, you'll go get him. So yeah, I do think it's a little bit of both.
That's why I feel like Terry Fontenot and the Atlanta Falcons as an organization, they're really in a good spot because they have options, right? Because and here's the thing, like they aren't desperate. Like the Carolina Panthers, because you can't hear them. You don't. If you hear David Tepper and the Carolina Panthers are looking to trade up, like you don't hear. Like it's kind of weird, right? You almost a lot of times you hear the general manager names being thrown in there, or just the organization solely when in these reports. But when you hear reports of the owner saying that, hey, they're looking to trade up to get into a quarterback conversation. Though that's a different scenario than the Falcons are in right now, because like you got a guy that you feel like could be a guy, but you're not necessarily sold on him long term right now. As far as you want to see a little bit more of him, like that's a better situation to be in than your owner being involved in these reports, and as an organization, you're trying to figure out, hey, we need a quarterback right now. So those are two totally different scenarios, and I think that could play out in the Falcons' favor, being that now the Saints have their guy in Derek Carr, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we don't know what they're gonna do. Kyle Trask, that's gonna be the guy. Bruce Arians trying to sell me on that. I don't know if I'm necessarily sold on that, T. But when you think about where the Falcons are, I think that they have to do their due diligence, and I think that this is Terry Fontenot playing the game right. And I think a lot of people forget this is the time of year that people put stuff out there. They blow smoke. They have conversations with people that they know they're not going to necessarily draft. Those are the type of things that goes down this time of year. And I think people tend to forget that when they say that, oh, yeah, this means that the Falcons are going to draft a quarterback. Hold your horses. But I think that this is something that, you definitely need to pay attention to as they go through this process.
And then you have a nice class of edge rushers that you can choose from. So if by chance you decide to go for the quarterback at 8, you may take that 44 pick and you may move up into the latter part of the first round, right? And still get yourself a quality guy. And then the other thing is this, you start seeing reports like Leonard Floyd the Rams being willing to trade him. Is that someone you go after? Just talking about considerations, right? And if you look at, you mentioned 2 key words, tea leaves. Look at the tea leaves from the Titans. They're starting to do some fire sale type stuff. And the Falcons had already kind of become Nashville South anyway. Indeed. So if indeed Mike Vrabel and company are looking at a bit of a reset there, you never know who the Falcons may be able to get at some of those critical spots, right? From a free agency perspective, that might then allow them to go after a quarterback a little bit straight up away. But yeah, we've, I think, learned enough about Terry Fontenot these last couple of seasons, and we know what the Saints were able to do with the crazy wizardry they were able to do in free agency. Indeed, I wouldn't be shocked. But Terry Fontenot very much knows how to play chess and not checkers.
Absolutely. And when you think about all of these things coming up, like Leonard Floyd is a really good name. Like, we're going to dive into that. Not today, but we're going to dive into that at a later date. But yeah, I think that'll be a good name for the Falcons to take a look at. Now, as far as the Lamar Jackson saga, right? We've been talking about it, and it's probably a little bit too much though, because I know sometimes our pre-show meetings, we get tired of all of this Lamar Jackson to the Falcons situation, because there have been prominent and respected NFL insiders saying that, hey, this is a possibility. Now, as we sit, this is March 6th, March 7th at 4:00. That is the tag deadline for franchise tag deadline. The teams have to make a decision, right? So, but there are reports that Jeremy Fowler of ESPN is saying that more than likely the people that he's talked to, that they're going to use that non-exclusive tag for Lamar Jackson, meaning that they need 2 first-round picks in order to get Lamar Jackson, and you're going to have to pay him. So with that being said, and with this being so close, a little bit more than 24 hours out of this tag deadline, do you feel that this is going to dead that Falcons, Lamar Jackson to the Falcons rumor, or are you going to add fuel to the fire?
I feel like it might add fuel to the fire. I see that the non-exclusive tag looks like it's the way to go. And if you're in a position to be able to say, hey, we can – as the Ravens, they want to put Lamar Jackson out there to say, hey, let's see what everyone else offers you because we know we can match it. I mean, why not? It's not a bad way to go. And the Falcons, to me, and again, this is just reading some of the tea leaves and kind of following the tendencies of the organization the last couple of seasons. Deshaun Watson, why not have the conversation? I would be shocked if word ever comes out of Flowery Branch, if they don't get Lamar Jackson, that they'll say, well, no, we never even had a conversation with the Ravens or Lamar Jackson or his representation, which I know he and his mom represent him, but I'd be shocked if that conversation doesn't happen. Now, do I think it's going to go anywhere, Jarvis? No, I don't. Not that I think the 2 first rounders for Lamar Jackson, I don't think that's a huge deal, because I think at some point we kind of thought that it was going to be way more. So I don't think that's as big as we thought. Probably more so his asking price as far as that guaranteed money is probably bigger than what the Ravens asking price might be for him. But I think a conversation will be had just so that you can check the box to say you were in consideration and you considered him. But whether the Falcons go anywhere with it, not sure about that. But I do think the Ravens will at least give teams the opportunity that they're looking for with that non-exclusivity.
Yeah, and like I mentioned the team before, in the teal and black and silver up in Charlotte, like if they aren't interested or we willing to drop those first round picks, I don't know who would be. So it's going to be this division is going to be very interesting to you as far as who lines up under center for in the teams of the NFC South. And I think that we already know that Derek Carr is going to be that guy in New Orleans.
He's that guy, right?
He's that guy. They probably working those numbers out as we speak and record this podcast. Now, speaking of numbers, how about you trying to do some numbers, trying to win a little bread, right? You know, trying to win some money. How about this? Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn because they are the #1 sports book in America. You guys come to us each and every day because we are the #1 podcast in America. Come on now, like if I ain't got confidence in myself, then who gonna have it? How about that? But yeah, we need you guys to have confidence to go to FanDuel.com and check out what they have going on for the new customers. What do they have going on for the new customers, Jarvis? They got the no sweat first bet up to $1,000. If you lose your shorts, betting the over-unders on those 3-pointers by Trae Young or John Collins. See, I ain't singling them out this time. I had a Trae in the conversation. Or what about DeJounte Murray? Yeah, it was a little rough. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that up next. But first, I got to continue to tell you about FanDuel.com. Now, you can bet on everything from the money line, the point scores, to 3 drain. Also, you can just download the FanDuel Sports app because it's safe, secure, and it's super easy to use. So all you need to do is just go to FanDuel.com at .com/lockedon to get your no sweat first bet. That's up to $1,000 in bonus bets back if you lose your first bet. So just go to FanDuel.com to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Official. So speaking of official,
yes,
Quin Snyder has begun his first road trip officially as head coach of the Hawks. And it actually wasn't, it was a tough loss, but not a tough loss all at the same time, right? Because when you see the Hawks go down so early in double digits and then they come just blazing back in that third quarter, make a game of it and almost pull out the upset Saturday, then it kind of wasn't. It's like, it's exciting. It didn't, to me, Jarvis, feel like the same old, right? And so I did see a difference in what I saw in the Hawks over the weekend because the way that they battled their way back into that game was a combination. So they started hitting their shots and they started getting stops. And how many times have we said when they go on a run or even when they're up in a game, like, okay, like, can't you do both? Like, why do we have to rely on you guys hitting the shots? Or why do we have to rely on you getting the stops? Why can't we get both? I felt like you got both. The Hawks just kind of ran out of gas in the end for all intents and purposes. Understandable because they came off quite a game on Friday night against the Blazers at home. Now you got to hop on a flight. You get to Miami at 3 a.m. and then you're expected to kind of show and prove. Not going to happen. Now they've had a couple days to reset, kind of refresh themselves, if you will. And I feel like we're going to see a difference in their play tonight. And why do I say that? You and I were talking back and forth via email this past weekend on some comments that we heard from DeJounte Murray as well as from Quin Snyder in terms of what it was that Quin saw out of the game after the Blazers that he liked, what he saw even a couple nights before that, although, Hawks lost, but still. And that's the thing, like DeJounte was saying, hey, practice was supposed to just be this film breakdown, but then an hour later we're still practicing, and it's because they're starting to see the message, Jarvis, or hear the message. You feel the same?
Yes, I think so, because when one of the things that I was really encouraged by, and it was in the loss against the Miami Heat, was like during a timeout. Like a lot of times we even pointed this out, like when Nate McMillan, was still the head coach of this team, a lot of times you would just see guys just walk straight to the bench. There's no conversations, no anything. And then they'll get into the huddle. He'll start doing some things. And you kind of see some guys kind of looking off in the distance and kind of see what's going on. But Quin Snyder, not so much. And specifically, which is probably the one of the reasons why I feel like this organization hired this dude, is the fact that I will see Trae Young going to the sidelines and Quin Snyder. He and Quin are just engaging in a really in-depth conversation. You got to really tell when guys are locked in, when somebody is communicating back and forth. And I think that's what I saw, and I really was encouraged by that. Yeah. And when you think about that relationship and Quin being a former player as well, going to play at Duke, and then Trae Young being a dynamic guard. Like those guys starting to really get a good synergy and a good relationship that I feel like it eventually is going to transfer onto the court, and Trae Young can kind of deliver the message that he's been trying to do, deliver Snyder, that is. And I think that'll be a really good benefit for the Hawks. But also one more thing, T, that really just stood out to me, and I thought it was just really cool to watch, is that front court of Saddiq Bey, Onyeka Okongwu, and Jalen Johnson. T, that was one of the reasons why this team came back against the Heat. Yes. This is the bench, really coming in and just getting buckets. Saddiq was just shooting the ball. I think was shooting 50%. From three right now. So in the last few games, so those are some of the things that I'm really encouraged by. And we even to go back to when we were talking about the rotation, right, and Quin being able to say, hey, this is the type of night that's going down, and we just going to ride this out. And I think that with that second group against the Heat, he was like, you know what? I know Trae hadn't been in a while, but this is how we're going to do. We're going to roll with it how it is for this particular game, and those rotations be damned.
And I so agree with you on that one, because going back to your first point, when you have those conversations like Quin Snyder said, and please understand, Hawks fans, we're not saying anything to offend or disrespect Nate McMillan, because you can actually compliment Quin Snyder without offending or insulting Nate McMillan. I just kind of want to set the stage there. Now that we've said that, Quin Snyder having those communiques that you just spoke about is also why he can say post-game, hey, I need more out of my backcourt. I need my backcourt to battle on the boards a little bit harder. Yeah. So he's setting the stage because he knows, hey, 9 rebounds is not going to cut it from your backcourt.
5 for 27 is not going to cut it either.
Right. Yeah. And so that's the kind of thing where you have that conversation with them, and it's okay because you've already started the conversation real time, and you've had it one-on-one, so that when you have it in that larger setting, it's not a shock. Going to what you said as well, though, I'm going to peek into the numbers of the bench, which second unit acted like they wanted to be the bench mob again. I was like, hey, we have not seen the bench mob show up a lot this season at all. And when you look into the numbers, you know what I like the most? The fact that Saddiq Bey and Onyeka Okongwu outscored Bogdan Bogdanović. Now, why do I mention that? Because we have said that part of this 22-game season that Quin Snyder has is about auditions. It's about him seeing what different rotations can do, what individuals can do, if you will. And so you kind of saw that, because you don't know what you're going to get when you're looking at Saddiq Bey and his $2.9 million salary, and you're looking at Bogdan Bogdanović and Bogey's $18 million salary, and the fact that word on the street is he is actually going to kind of dip and dive and put his toe in the water and see what free agency brings. So yeah, Jarvis, I think you called out maybe the best part of the most encouraging part of Saturday, because that also included, and while his stat line may not have shown it with just 5 points, when you dig a little bit deeper and you see there's 4 rebounds, if you will, and there's an assist in there and just 1 turnover, Jalen Johnson was handling the ball and did a pretty decent job of it. So, yeah, I like what you called out there, because when you start getting into a 4-game road trip like what they're on right now, and you start looking at the games that they have to play, the teams, that they have to play when they come back, the likes of the Celtics and the Wolves and the Warriors, there are some things you want to try to tweak as best you can while you're on this road trip. You got one more shot at the Heat. You get to take them without Kyle Lowry. So that's a good look for you. So maybe they'll get this one as well. But here's the thing too, Jarvis. You had to be encouraged. We said this on Friday, right? That this was going to be the weekend that you did not eat a Built Bar because you were stressed out. This is going to be the weekend that you ate a Built Bar because you were in your happy place. And honestly, even though we were all disappointed about the loss to the Hawks, real talk, you should have been eating a Built Bar because you were happy about that. And you should have been happy about your dogs, because they absolutely showed out. Jarvis, people love to talk about winners and losers in the combine individually, UGA won that thing collectively. So dog fans, celebrate. You can celebrate with a Built Bar. Get yourself a churro flavor or the almond flavor, peanut butter. I mean, you have choices. You have options. And don't we all love options? So don't forget, you can go to Built.com. You can still order it online if that's what you so choose. We understand. It's a beautiful day out there. You may not be wanting to run around getting Built Bars. We get it. Order it. That way you already have it in the stash, and it'll be all good when you sit back for Selection Sunday. And we'll remind you about this a couple more days in the week when you sit back for Selection Sunday to see where the Kennesaw State Owls land in the big dance. But again, you'll do it and you'll get yourself 17 grams of protein, 100% real chocolate, and only 130 grams. That's a good look coupled with what you would normally be eating on Selection Sunday and for March Madness. So don't forget, check out Built.com to get your bars. Go to Walmart if you're like me, you want to go out and you just want to kind of get your own bars, or you're cheap like me too, and you want to go to Sam's Club and buy in bulk. So don't forget, Built.com. Built bars are definitely a good look for you.
Absolutely. Locked On Sports Atlanta family, listen up. We are on our way to 6,000 subscribers. And if you are listening or watching this podcast and you have not done so yet, you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, go there right now. Type in Locked On Sports Atlanta. We'll pop right up, hit that subscribe button. Also, and get ready for, hitting that notification bell as well. So you'll know when this heat is going to drop, because we got that heat for you each and every day, Monday through Friday. So stop playing around, people. We got this thing going. So we need you to hop on board as well. Now, T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on the show. Today is no different. How about this? Ja Morant is probably one of the more dynamic players in the NBA, T. When you're talking about just a guard that just can do pretty much anything you want as far as getting into the paint and finishing. But we know there have been a couple stories that have come out. One dealing with the 17-year-old and end up getting into an altercation with him at his house. And then the 17-year-old reportedly said that he brandished a gun at him as he was leaving. And then, the other incident with the Indiana Pacers, and then there was a red beam apparently pointed at those guys. And when you think about all of these instances, and the recent one where he was in the club brandishing the gun on his own IG Live page, T, now the NBA has come down and said, you know what, for at least the next 2 games, they're out there in L.A., the Grizzlies are out there in L.A. On a road trip, so he's going to at least miss those 2 games, and now they're going to investigate, T. When you think about all of this stuff that Ja Morant, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, how about this? Almost get into a squale with our guy Shannon Sharp in L.A. So all of these instances, T, like, is this the moment that Ja Morant, finally realizes and kind of sits down and take this time off and says to himself, you know what, I probably need to get things in order, and if I want to continue to rise to the top as one of the better NBA players in the NBA?
It depends. If he gets himself a mentor whom he's actually going to listen to, absolutely. And to me, he doesn't have to go far. That guy down the street where the Grizzlies used to play, go talk to him. Penny Hardaway will tell you all you need to know about the ins and outs of the league, right?
Yep.
He has been able to clean up some things at the University of Memphis and start to get things rolling the right way. Obviously, they fell a step short in their game against who are they? Oh, Houston. They played U of H Saturday, fell just a step short. But my point being that Penny Hardaway is a guy who's seen it all. He's seen a lot of things in his personal life. He saw a lot of things in his professional life, and he's right there down the road. And maybe somebody who, because he played at the highest level, maybe he's a voice that Ja may halfway listen to. So that to me is what I'm looking for. Like, who's that voice? And granted, I don't know necessarily that they have a relationship. Maybe they should figure out how to get one, because I think a lot of times, Jarvis, most of us, especially as we get older, as we become adults, we tend to listen to a voice that we respect, a voice that maybe has already been there and done that and can actually say, oh yeah, I remember when we took our first road trip to LA. And I remember when we hit the club and dude who was just random dude in the club tried to push up and try to pull up and do this, that, and the third, and it almost got out of hand. But back then, Nobody saw it. Okay,
Yeah.
that was just word on the street. Now
Yes.
it is something that's seen, and it is messing with your brand. It is
Yeah.
messing with millions upon millions of dollars, and it's also messing with the momentum of a team that's right there in the conversation to come out of the West. So those are the pieces, because you look at that team, they're adequate when he's not there, but when it's such a tight race and you're looking at 4-6, a record that they have when Ja is not in the lineup, Jarvis, that could be the difference in seeding. That could be the difference in a home series versus an away series, especially if they make it to, say, the Western Conference Finals. You got to
Indeed.
be thinking about all of that. He's that guy. He was a typical 17-year-old, I'm sure. You're not the typical 20-year-old, 21-year-old,
No.
like, by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, I feel like he has to have someone to pull his coat, and it has to also be someone whom T. Morant respects, because T. Morant is
Yeah.
not going to take a step to the sideline for just anybody, but maybe a Penny Hardaway type who, hey, he's got some he's got some street cred. Maybe that's the type of person who can sit them both down and say, look, here's what's in jeopardy. Here's what's at jeopardy. Here's what's at risk if you guys don't get this back together and understand that you are that guy. And so people are always looking for an opportunity to take you down a peg. Don't give them the window to do it.
Yeah, I like that Penny Hardaway name. How about this? I got a couple more names for you. How about this? A Tony Allen, or even a
Yeah.
Zach Randolph,
Yeah.
guys who played for the organization. Those guys are
Yeah.
super respected around the NBA and within that city as well.
That's
So
right.
I think
Yes.
there are plenty options out there as far from a mentor standpoint if
Indeed.
he chooses to go that route. But I think overall, though, T, like we don't. To be honest with you, I'm rooting for the man to go get it right. Like I'll never be sit up here and say, look at this young brother and say, you know what, man, that dude, man, just do what you do, and if you mess up that money, too bad, so sad. Nah, I'm not on that train. I'm on the train of like, man, we go through things when we in our early 20s, and yeah, true enough, he's not a kid. And he has to be mature, but I always fall back to when I was in that age range from 17 to 24 or 25 years old, and I don't have 190 some odd millions dollars to lose, but you think about the decisions that you make, and you make quick decisions, and we know that in this world today in 2023, like quick decisions will get you, you know what, and that's the type of thing that you don't want to see somebody fall by the wayside because of a quick decision that they made, and all they had to do was just kind of really just think that bad boy out and move along, or just say, you know what, you got it, bro.
Yeah. Yes.
Like that response to any scenario will more than likely get you on, it'll neutralize it, and you'll get out of that. You can just back away and just walk off and just feel really good about, hey, I handled that situation the way I needed to handle it, because guess what? I got stuff to do. And the Memphis Grizzlies as an organization, we know they want him to make those decisions, because the Western Conference is so tight, meaning like it's so close and nobody's really saying, you know what, we're going to be the favorites to win this thing.
Right.
The Memphis Grizzlies, I don't want to see the Memphis Grizzlies miss out on the opportunity because a decision. All they had to do is just take a little quick step back and think about it from that standpoint and make a good decision.
And just one more quick thing. I'm going to go with what you said. I'm rooting for Ja Morant because Skip Bayless, Ja Morant's not a thug. So watch your commentary when it comes to this situation. Understand that there are levels to it. I really liked what some other guys were able to say. Mike Wilbon, I thought, put it eloquently from ESPN. There are some other guys that put some context around this situation and the larger challenges that we're dealing with in terms of just kind of like that representation in the streets. But again, this is, like you said, Jarvis, a 20-something-year-old man who just made a wrong decision and just needs somebody to turn him in the right direction. But let's just watch how we just label folks out of the gates and just put them in a box and try to keep them there. He's far from it. And I believe that in time, we're going to see just what kind of a quality human being he really is.
Yeah, I think that'll be something that we definitely will keep an eye on. And T, I was going to bring up, my excitement, but I'm going to hold off until tomorrow.
Ooh, can't wait.
Y'all come back. There's something that I'm really excited about, and I want to share with you all about what that is. But we want to thank you guys for making ATL Day One's your first listen of the day. Why don't you stop by Locked On Sports today and make it your second listen of the day? They got all the top national stories of the day. They got each and everything that, as far from a take of the day, like who's out here, what's buzzing. We know NFL Combine, Georgia players. We know they're touching on that because they can have everything right there for you. So all you got to do is go download it wherever you download this podcast, and it'll pop right up. Now, we do this each and every day, guys. I got to ask you this, and I will continue to ask you this until we leave this place, until I leave this earth. Make sure that you share love, show love, and most importantly, spread love.